Tonight, we examine a showdown in Portland, Oregon, a city now at the heart of a national debate over power, law, and who controls order in America. President Trump moved to send the National Guard to Portland, calling it a city under siege, while Oregon's governor called it unconstitutional overreach. The legal battle that followed is about more than protests. It's about the limits of presidential authority and the rights of states to govern themselves. The question: can the president deploy military forces on American soil against a state's wishes? This is not just politics, it's a constitutional crisis that could reshape the relationship between the White House and every state for years to come. The nation is polarized, trust in institutions is low, and the stakes are high. The court's involvement is crucial, a check on executive power, and a test of the balance between freedom, security, and democracy. Who gets to police our streets? When does protest become rebellion? Who decides? As we dig into this case, we're not just reporting a legal fight, we're examining the very fabric of our republic. On November 2nd, a pivotal decision came from Portland's federal courthouse. Judge Karen Immergut, a Trump appointee, issued a preliminary injunction blocking the National Guard deployment. This isn't a final verdict, but it's a major pause, giving the judge time to review extensive evidence from a 3-day trial. Judge Immergut's order signals she's taking Oregon's arguments seriously and isn't convinced by the administration's claims of emergency. She found no credible evidence that protests had escalated to a rebellion or that federal officers couldn't do their jobs. The judge was not persuaded that military intervention was warranted. This temporary measure freezes the situation until a final ruling expected by Friday. Both sides now await a decision that could set the stage for appeals and a national legal battle. For now, the National Guard is on standby. The nation waits to see what the law will decide. The legal clash began in September 2025, when President Trump declared his intent to send troops to Portland, citing ongoing protests and property damage. Oregon's governor and attorney general called it a violation of state sovereignty, arguing local law enforcement could handle the unrest. California joined Oregon, and together they sued the federal government, claiming the president's actions violated the 10th Amendment. The lawsuit argued that policing is a state responsibility, and the president can't override a governor's objections. The Trump administration defended its authority, citing federal law and the Insurrection Act. The conflict moved from political rhetoric to a federal courtroom, where the Constitution itself was on trial. What started as a local dispute became a national test of presidential power versus state rights. At the heart of the case is a classic American debate: federal power versus state sovereignty. Oregon and California argued the 10th Amendment reserves police power to the states, making Trump's plan a direct assault on state rights. The administration pointed to the Insurrection Act, claiming the president can deploy troops to enforce federal law or suppress insurrection. Judge Immergut had to decide if Portland's unrest met the high bar for invoking the Insurrection Act. She expressed skepticism, noting the law requires a true rebellion that makes enforcing federal law impracticable. Evidence showed federal operations continued elsewhere in Portland, undermining claims of chaos. The court must now decide: is this lawful enforcement or presidential overreach? Is this lawful? The trial revealed two starkly different versions of Portland. Federal attorneys described a city on the brink, with attacks on officers and property. Oregon and California countered that violence was isolated, not widespread, and demonstrations had waned. Testimony from Portland police and federal officials showed unrest was limited to a small area, with no serious injuries to federal personnel. A senior Federal Protective Service official testified he never requested National Guard help, contradicting the administration's crisis narrative. The ICE facility, though closed for weeks, continued operations elsewhere. Federal law was still enforced. Judge Immergut seized on this. Inconvenience is not impossibility. The evidence showed a government inconvenienced, not incapacitated. This distinction became central to the judge's reasoning. The case forced the court to define rebellion in a modern context. The administration argued Portland's protests triggered the Insurrection Act, but Judge Immergut looked to history. Shays Rebellion and the Whiskey Rebellion. Those were armed, organized uprisings against government authority, not sporadic unrest. The judge defined rebellion as an organized, armed effort to seize government control, a high bar. Portland's protests, she found, were episodic and localized, not an armed insurrection. No evidence showed a coordinated campaign to seize the ICE facility or overthrow federal operations. By drawing this line, the judge dismantled the administration's central argument. The Insurrection Act, she ruled, can't be used for local public order problems. The president's powers are not triggered by isolated unrest. Judge Immergot's decision sparked immediate partisan reactions. Oregon leaders hailed it as a victory for states' rights and democracy. Governor Kotek and Attorney General Rayfield called it a win for facts over politics, arguing the evidence didn't justify federal intervention. In Washington, the White House and DOJ stayed silent at first, then doubled down on their position, insisting federal action was needed to restore order. The divide is clear. Oregon sees a local issue needing de-escalation. The administration sees a national security threat. The courtroom is quiet, but the political battle rages on. The ruling is a temporary win for Oregon, but the conflict is far from over. The Portland case is more than a local dispute. It's a national test of presidential power. Judge Immergot's final ruling is imminent, but appeals are certain, likely reaching the Supreme Court. The outcome could permanently shift the balance between the president and state governors. If the administration wins, future presidents could deploy the military domestically over state objections, expanding executive power. If Oregon prevails, it reaffirms state sovereignty and limits the president's use of the military for domestic law enforcement. The Insurrection Act would remain a last resort, not a tool for managing protests. The judiciary must now draw a line that will define presidential power for decades. The stakes couldn't be higher. This legal drama asks a fundamental question: who decides how order is kept, Washington or the states? Some argue the president must have final authority to ensure national security and enforce federal law. Others warn against concentrating power, fearing the military could become a political tool. The Constitution was designed to balance federal strength with state autonomy. The Portland case is a modern test of that balance. As citizens, we must pay attention and consider what kind of country we want. The question of who decides isn't just for the courts, it's for all Americans.